Hello, everyone, and welcome back to season 3 of Let's Talk Elephants. Before jumping into the content of this week's episode, I just wanted to again mention how much I've been enjoying my jewelry pieces from my sponsor, Ana Luisa, spelled Analuisa. To visit their site and receive 10% off your purchase, just type in the URL shop.analuisa.com/elephants. This weekend at work, we were allowed to wear our hair up in a ponytail because it was super hot. So I got a lot of compliments on my little pair of snake earrings that I have in all of the time. They're pretty unique, which is why I think they stand out to people to begin with. And Ana Luisa has a lot of different pieces that are like this, not just in earrings, but in other types of jewelry as well. The company obviously reached out to sponsor me, but I actually ended up being really impressed with their jewelry selection and the overall aesthetic of their pieces. I never take any of their earrings out because I just don't need to. The jewelry never breaks down or turns my skin green, so I can just put my favorite pairs in and not worry about it again until I want to switch them out. Ana Luisa drops new collections every Friday, so they're constantly offering new pieces, and their stuff is made from materials like sterling silver, stainless steel, brass, and even solid gold. They start at just $39, and on top of them being affordable and aesthetically pleasing, they are also made in an environmentally friendly way. In 2020, this company became carbon neutral, counterbalancing the entirety of its CO2 footprint for a net zero output. So every piece of your collection is going to be carbon invisible. Again, for more information and to receive 10% off your purchase, you can visit shop.analuisa.com/elephants. Once you get there, you'll be able to see their selection of rings, earrings, necklaces, bracelets, all that good stuff. And again, use my code ELEPHANTS for 10% off your purchase. They do run sales pretty regularly anyways, but now you have a guaranteed discount code for whenever you decide to purchase. Thank you. So, jumping right into everything, talk about the elephant in the room, huh? I don't know if there is an episode that I've done that's been more aptly timed than this one, and that was actually totally on accident. In all honesty, I was hesitant to book this episode even before the recent rulings of the Supreme Court because this is one of those topics that I'm really passionate about, and I always want to make sure I'm giving my guests the best and most fair version of myself in conversation. And with topics that you care a lot about, that just becomes more difficult. And obviously, with the recent decision of the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade, this has ignited a lot of feelings inside of me as a woman, on top of already caring deeply about the issue. That being said, I think that makes this conversation all the more important because it can be an example to others of how we can still have productive and patient conversations with people who have had different experiences than us. I would like to preface the interview by clarifying what this episode is and what it is not. The episode this week is a recollection and a sharing of a unique and very difficult experience with abortion from my guest, Kyle Collins. Kyle was in a situation where he wanted to have children, and the partner he was with at that time decided not to keep the child and to have an abortion. And this happened to him not once, but twice. He has, as all my guests do, bravely agreed to come on and vulnerably share what is most likely one of the hardest things he's had to endure in his lifetime at a time where it probably feels very dangerous to do so. And I ask that no matter what your stance is on abortion, you treat him and his experience with respect because this is his truth, no matter what your truth is. Now, while we will most likely touch on his individual perception of abortion, this episode is not a broader discussion as to whether abortion is ethical or unethical. Neither one of us are medical professionals with the appropriate body of knowledge to do justice to that conversation scientifically, and obviously Kyle is a male who does not have experience as a woman. This episode is strictly to shed light on a side of abortion that does not often get discussed but is still very important, as the way it affects males is one of the many factors that makes the decision to either carry out or not carry out an abortion all the more difficult. Now I'd like to pass the mic over to my guest, Kyle. So could you please just introduce yourself and then start by sharing with us each one of the experiences that you've had with abortion?
Sure, and Destiny, thanks for having me here on your podcast. My name is Kyle, last name Collins. I Been in Vegas about 20 years. I'm currently a general manager for a food and beverage establishment. Been doing that for about the last 4 years. Have a background in hospitality and food and beverage. Also served in the U.S. military, and have a couple of degrees from college. Um, Speaking of the situation, so this time period was from 2006 to 2011. It was with two different women, and they weren't random women. They were actually women that I was in a relationship with and lived with. So it wasn't, one of those situations where, oh my gosh, I don't really know this person. We, made it. We, our actions now. She's pregnant. What do we do? These were, two women that I loved, cared a lot about, and could actually see my life being linked to them for ever. So the first abortion I went through, what led us there, and I don't even know if I discussed this with you, Destiny, but the first time we got pregnant, she had an ectopic pregnancy. For those that don't know what that means, the baby is growing outside of into a tube that it can't grow in, and if it continues to grow, it's going to kill her, and the baby itself is going to die. She found that news going back up to Washington to visit her mom for Christmas, and they were actually shopping for the baby and everything, and she was having some difficulty. She started bleeding. They rushed her to the emergency room. I was down here working at the time when they gave her the diagnosis. She called home, and I will never forget the way she sounded on the phone. She was crying. She was just torn apart, which made me sad to hear her. How sad she was. She immediately wanted to try again, and me, it was like, well, let's just see. This is a lot to deal with, because we told some friends that she was pregnant, and so to have to go back now and say, she lost a baby, and there's you shouldn't be ashamed of it, but there was a shame to it for both of us to tell people, no, we're not pregnant anymore. She unfortunately lost a baby.
Did she miscarry? Is that what happened?
They had to take it from her because
Okay.
it was growing and not growing in the wrong tube, so they had to take it from her. So they did that. She came home, and probably about 7 months later, she was pregnant again, and it was the summertime. She went to go visit her mom up in Seattle, and she was having complications again with this baby. And this baby is now 4 months in the womb. So there's some formation of life there. The doctor checked her out. She went to two doctors. They checked her out. The doctor told her that the baby was struggling. Had a lot of fluid in places that it should not have fluid at. If she was going to have this baby, it was going to probably have a ton of birth defects. So calling back home to tell me what was going on, because once again I was here working while she went to go visit her mom. They were very close. She said they have to have emergency surgery and take the baby, because it would, if they said if she continued to carry full term and had the baby was probably going to be stillborn at birth. So she made the choice to terminate this pregnancy. Those two pregnancies I actually understood totally to a T. Was totally, there was no doubt and question that the right thing was being done. We were now starting to struggle in the relationship because of these two back to back, not even a year apart.
Yeah.
We were now struggling, and she actually wound up spending the whole summer in Bellevue, Washington, so we can think about what do we want to do now. Maybe this is a sign we shouldn't be together. We worked through it. She eventually came back in the fall, and we carried on with life. And then things just got worse from that point, and they didn't get better. They just got worse, and she wound up actually that November before Thanksgiving, she wound up moving back to Seattle. We still kept in contact. When she got back to Seattle, December 12th, I'll never forget the date. She called me. She told me she was pregnant. And she's like, and she cried about that because she's like, you live there, I live here. You know, we're going through all these issues. What do we do? So I immediately flew up to Washington, to be with her. When her family found out, they kind of just distanced themselves from her. And so actually, while I'm there, I actually wind up having to, pay for an apartment, place for her to live and go. And I was gonna come back to Vegas, end everything here, and go up there and do this because she wanted to keep this child. So I come back down after being there for 2 weeks. Come back down here, started trying to close this phase of life out here in Las Vegas, and they were having a big family dinner. This is literally right after Christmas. And it was her mom and father weren't together. Her mother was now remarried. He was also remarried. So there was two sets of parents, four parents all together. They had an intervention with her. I mean, her whole family, grandparents, cousins, aunts, mothers and fathers, stepmothers and stepfathers, had an intervention with her for her to not have this baby.
Wow.
Unfortunately to say, race played a part in that. It's like, this kid is going to be half black. Have you thought about?
Was she white?
No, she was actually, half white, Portuguese and Caucasian.
Okay.
They asked her, have you thought about what it means to, raise a kid that's going to be half, African American? That's going to be a tough life for this kid. Is that something that you want to do? And she listened to everything that they had to say, and they swayed her. And without telling me, because in my mind, I'm moving back up to Washington State, and we're going to have this baby, stay together, do what we need to do as parents and as a couple to raise this baby, and and make a healthy relationship for this baby. So she called me January 9th and said she was in the hospital because she was bleeding. She had not told me that she had an abortion, and this was a complication after the abortion. I did not know that. So me thinking, oh my God, something's wrong with this baby. So I was like, I'll be there tomorrow. I'll catch the next plane out. I don't want you to go through this alone. I was down here while you went through the other two. And she didn't have the heart to tell me on the phone. So her mom called me after we hung up the phone and told me. And she's like, she had an abortion a week ago. And I just dropped the phone and just stunned.
Yeah.
Just stunned and trying to, rationalize why she would have an abortion when she cried so hard for the last two kids that didn't have a chance to make it. She finally had the courage to call me and talk to me about the intervention that they had with her, what they were saying to her about the kid being half African American. I didn't know what to say. I really didn't. I was just in shock. Like, I even brought that up. I'm like, how did you remember how you cried when they told you couldn't have the other two? Like, I don't understand how could you have done this to this child. And so, of course it led to, conflict, arguing and fighting. And, eventually we went our separate ways because, what else was there to say or to do at this point? Everything that I had put in motion to make that transition from here to up there, I stopped. I didn't say anything to anybody. I just told things didn't work out. People didn't even know that kid existed, that she was even pregnant. We hadn't said anything to anybody. Her family knew, obviously, because she was there, she was living, and she was starting to show. So that was the first 3 pregnancies that I went through, just all, loss after loss after loss. Like after we decided to not, deal with each other anymore, there was still communication on and off. Still a lot of hurt in those conversations. So they weren't constructive conversations. They were very destructive conversations because there was just a lot of hurt there and a lot of process. And I was angry because of the reason why she decided to abort, like based off, her family's like, the kid's going to be happy. Like, what does that have to do with anything? And like, why would you let your child not, come into this world because of the color of their skin? Or, I mean, who knows what the kid would have looked like, you don't know. But I just from that point on, I just kind of just kept to myself, and didn't say much to people, just kind of went into a depression. I wasn't working as much. I would get someone to cover my shifts. I just did not have the will. I was just trying to get through this. And when people would people would see me, they literally thought I was either had cancer, was going through chemo because I had lost so much weight, or one of the things I got, I had HIV, had AIDS. I had just dropped so much weight in such a short amount of time. Like you can see it, face, eyes sunken in, not really eating, not seeing anybody. I just kind of just fell off the grid, trying to deal with this. And I don't think I did, even, thinking back on it. I didn't. I just kind of went on autopilot, so to speak, to try to get through it. And then as I was going through it, I met another woman who was awesome, a mother of 3 kids herself. When we first met, she was married with 3 kids, young kids. We became really good friends. Then things started taking a turn in her marriage. There was infidelity on both sides. So I'm not gonna admonish her actions, but both sides had infidelity on it. Me and her, when we worked at the same place together, so we always saw each other. Then we started getting close with each other, even though she was still married. And I think April 19th, buddy of mine was celebrating his 30th birthday. Went to the Mary Jay-Z concert, went out to eat, went to Privé at the time, which was over at Planet Hollywood, had a table. She came to it, and nothing happened or anything. We just talked while everybody was just drinking and having fun. And when she went home, I just knew. I was like, I had feelings for her. So the next day when I saw her, she called to check on me. She's like, "How was the night?" I was like, "Oh, it was great." And then I was like, "I know this is not right." I said, "But I said I'm pretty sure I have feelings for you. I knew that last night." And she reciprocated, saying she also felt a connection. Her marriage they were separating. They had a legal separation, joint custody of the kids. She was asking me about my past relationship, told her the whole story. And as we were sitting down at lunch, she could just see in my face how much it still bothered me, how hurt I was from it. And she just looked at me and she's like, if I ever get lucky to we ever get pregnant, she's like, I would never do something like that to you. I would love to have your kid. And her saying that with a sense of comfort, I was like, wow, this is cool. And then also I had the comfort of that she already had kids. So it's not like she's heading down a new, if it did happen, she's not heading down a new journey that she doesn't know anything about. She also experienced her first time she was ever pregnant before she had her kids was a miscarriage. So she knew what loss felt like for something that she, really, really wanted. So as we wound up, starting to embark on our relationship. We started, spending the night at each other's houses, started getting closer and eventually becoming a couple. Her marriage she was not legally divorced yet. That had not been finalized. So I just want to, be clear about that and be transparent about that. The kids got along great with the kids. They knew me first, obviously, as a friend. They would come, pick her up from work and they would see me, and we, always had a bit of chemistry with them. I even knew the husband because he worked there part-time too. And the crazy thing about his situation was the girl that I used to hang out with all the time, who I thought I was going to go in a relationship with, he was sleeping with. And so everybody was like, you need to say something. I'm like, I'm not going to get involved. That's not my relationship. Like if it comes to light, somebody else, that's, let them go ahead and reveal it, but that's not for me to do. So I never said anything. And, which she thought was jacked up, but I'm like, what do you, I've seen that many times where you say something to a couple and next thing you know, they don't like you for saying that. So I just stayed out of it. So, we started seeing each other. We started, getting real close, and probably about 6 months into the relationship, even though she's still not, legally married, and she's of Filipino descent. She was pregnant and went to the sonogram, went shopping for the kid. And me, I have no nerves about those. Like, this is going to happen. I remember saying that to myself at the sonogram when they were, checking, seeing how the baby was doing and everything. I'm like, wow, this is finally going to happen. I was excited. I'm like, I can't believe this. She let the doctor know that she takes medicine for high blood pressure. And she was telling the doctor that her primary doctor said she could never get pregnant while she's on this particular medicine. So the doctor, he looked it up. He had this big medical book he brought into the room, and he looked at it and he's like, no, you'll be fine. He goes, but we can switch your medicine so it'll still keep your blood pressure down. The baby will be okay. I'll never forget him saying that. Never. Because that would become the basis of her argument on why she needs to do this later on down the line. So we get the picture of the sonogram of the baby and stuff. Due date is August the 15th. It's like, wow, that's going to be here quick. And, and ironically, the other baby that was aborted with the first woman, his or her due date was August 17th.
Wow.
So both of them would have been August kids. So we get home. I remember we went out for dinner to celebrate. Still hadn't shared the news with anybody. Was going to wait some months. Me, I really wanted to do that just because I just can't be, too premature about this and then have to backtrack on it, but like, no, we lost the baby or something else. I didn't want to do that. So I was like, being really guarded with this decision to tell anyone. So we didn't. We told one person, her best friend at the time, she told, because they were, like thick as thieves and sisters, basically, pretty much. So we go have dinner, really, really nice dinner down the strip. I'm happy and like, wow, like, this is going to be great. 2 months after that sonogram, she, divorce still not final. No one has been told that she's pregnant. A friend knows that she's pregnant. She's starting to show, but she's hiding it. I came home. I came into the house, and after work, she just looked at me. And she was standing in the kitchen, and she's like, "I can't have this baby." And I just like, what do you mean? Like we had the sonogram. We have, there's stuff upstairs for this child. What do you mean? She's like, that doctor doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm telling you, I can't have this baby, or this baby is going to have all sorts of problems because of the medication I'm on. And I'm like, he said that the medication can be switched so where you're protected and the baby protected. What do you, like, I'm just like so blindsided and confused here. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, and we got into a huge argument. And I left and went back to my place because we were just going back and forth to each other's places. And I'm at home just like, can't talk to anybody about it. Just at home, just, crying. She called me on the phone. She's like, can you come back over? I come back over. She's like, well, let's just see. She goes, let's just see. I was like, okay. So now sense of relief comes over me again. I'm like, okay, we're okay. 2 days after that, at work, she's like, we need to talk. And when somebody says that we need to talk, it can never be good. And so you're just on pins and needles all day. We went home, and she said, I scheduled an appointment to have an abortion. And me begging, please don't do this. Please don't do this. She's like, I cannot have this baby. It's not going to be healthy. I cannot have this baby. When is the appointment? It's in 2 weeks from today. I don't speak to her for like a week. When I do speak to her, do you still have, is that appointment still made? Do you still have the appointment? Yes, I do. Are you going to come with me, or do I need to call my girlfriend? I decide to go. Get there to the waiting room. You see all these women coming out, half out of it, because they put you under and stuff. I literally had a panic attack in the waiting room. I could not be there. And I was like, I can't be here. I can't do this. I can't do this. We left. We left immediately, not speaking to each other, but she saw I was not doing well with this at all. In the car, begging her, please don't do this. Please don't do this. And she's like, I need to do this. You don't understand. I'm like, I heard what the doctor said. Like, that's not true. Why do you keep saying that? He's like, that doctor doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm like, he had a book and everything. He was very sure about what the alternatives were, and that you were going to be safe and the baby was going to be safe. Dropped her off at her house. I went home, didn't speak to her for a few more days. When I was at work 4 days later, she went and did it with her friend without telling me. A friend called me after it was done. She said, hey, what time do you get off work? I told her, you need to stop by the house. It's like, why? For what? And she's like, she went and got it done this morning. I showed up at the house. She just looked at me and started crying. I started crying. I held her, and I didn't know what to say. I just couldn't. I just couldn't believe that this is happening again. I wound up staying the night just to make sure she was okay. Went to work the next day, back on autopilot. Took a leave of absence because I wasn't doing good at all. Back to people, if they did see me, you don't look good, Kyle. Lost a lot of weight again. Not happy, not smiling, constantly crying. It was dark days. And we're still a couple. I was determined to not let this end because of that. That happened in March when she April, when she made the decision to do what she did. That summer, her divorce became finalized. That fall, the kid's father called her. They were separated, living in 2 different houses now. Called her and told her, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to be moving back to San Diego with my mom and father. Her reaction was, what about the kids? His response was, you figure it out. So she calls me, tells me the whole conversation. We weren't living together, but that thrusted everything. Fast forward, fast. I had no plans of us living together. But we were just going through that. It's not the right time. But now these 3 kids, who is 5, 4, and 2, they need me. So I step in and become father figure to her 3 kids. And so we try to make this work. The following year, she gets pregnant again. She is gung-ho to have this baby. Now I'm confused. Why? What is it about this kid that can live on, but the other kid couldn't? I couldn't understand it, and it led to a lot of arguing and a lot of strife. She wound up, and I'm sure because of all that stress and all that strife between us, caused her to miscarry. And in those moments between the abortion to the miscarriage, something just never sat right with me on the why. And I wouldn't learn the why until a decade later, on what was the real reason why she decided to have the abortion out the blue after going to get the sonogram to find out the due date and check on the baby, after doing shopping to prepare for this baby's arrival. It's a total mind, excuse my language, it's a total mind fuck to go through that and sit in that room. I'd never done something like that before. So to me, it was wow, wow, that's your kid there that's on that screen, it's this is amazing. And then just to have it ripped from you the way that it was, and have it ripped without even the truth being told on why this is happening to you. And so I struggled because I always questioned, even after the miscarriage, I kept questioning, why? And then, I would throw it in her face. It just got toxic from that point on. Still determined to keep, to fight on and make it successful. And we had our good moments. Not going to lie. The 3 kids benefited from me. They wind up, thriving and be, not missing, because their father bounced. He was gone for 3 years before he even showed up again. But they missed him, but they didn't, because I literally just stepped in, was at the school plays, was became the coach for their soccer teams, made sure they had great Christmases and awesome birthdays, made sure when they were getting out of school, I didn't like when my mom used to make me wait for her to pick me up. So I always would be at school 20, 25 minutes before they got out of school, waiting outside. So they had that relief knowing, oh, he's going to be outside when we get out of school. And got close to all 3 of them, and, pretty much raised all 3 of them until, we was no more. And, my life went that way and her life went that way.
Are you still in touch with the kids and her?
Her, no. Because that ended so badly after all of that. The kids, yes.
What ended up being the real reason why she had the abortion?
Because she was still married and did not want her family to know.
And that wasn't something, why did it hit her all of a sudden? Is it because she started showing and it became real for her?
Exactly, because she started showing, I can't hide this. Divorce is not happening fast enough. Just living a lie, and, trying to cover up lies here and there. When her father found out, years later, as we were ending, he was devastated. He was devastated that she felt that she had to make that move to save face for the sake of her family. Her dad was completely devastated. I still talk to her father to this day.
Yeah.
He was completely devastated.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Because I guess I just wasn't even fully prepared for that level of experience. You know what I mean? Because I see, like, automatically as an empath, I see so many different sides of that story.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Obviously, first and foremost, I see yours. And how that's almost like a nightmare, because going through a trauma once is like traumatic, and it leaves an imprint on you, and then you have all these triggers and you have these memories and like these dark days, and you know, you finally come out of it, and like literally your worst nightmare is to go through it over and over and over again.
Repeating history again.
So I empathize with you there, because as you're telling me the story, like, my heart breaks for you, because I know how hard it must be to go through something like that over and over and over again. I will say that my dad is not biologically related to me.
Mm-hmm.
So he met my mom when she was 4 months pregnant with me, and he chose to be my dad and to be a part of my life. So you are a father, regardless of whether or not you have biological children, which is not easy for you, especially if you want biological children. But I can say, as someone,
they still do not know that story to this day.
Yeah. Are they young?
No. They're old enough to understand. They're teenagers. They're old enough to understand, but that has never been told. I don't want to tell them because I don't want to. And I never, and the biggest reason why I never said anything to anybody is I didn't want people to look at either of those two women a certain way. I figure I'll just deal with this pain. I'll deal with this trauma. Like it's my burden to bear. Still, once again, still being protective over both of them in spite of my own feelings. That probably wasn't a good thing. And when the second abortion, we went to therapy over it. Literally right after it happened, we went to therapy over it because I didn't want to lose this relationship, and I wanted to do everything necessary to I heal us both. She went to one session, and for her that was it. She didn't want to go no more. Mm-hmm. So I was left to deal with it on my own. Even the person in your foxhole didn't even want anything to do with this fight. You're just literally just, for lack of better terms, you're sleeping with the enemy. Yeah. I never thought it was possible that you could love and hate someone at the same time. And that just makes you crazy, because that's two different powerful emotions that you're dealing with at once. At the same time, it's a lot to process. It's a lot to navigate through. Yeah. So,
yeah. Well, as you already know, I've made clear to you beforehand, and I've been very vocal about it on most of my social media accounts. I'm pretty vehemently pro-choice. Mm-hmm. But the situation, and I still am, even in those situations, and you've kind of expressed this to me too, where it is still their right to choose that. Right. But it wasn't done, I think, ethically on your end, towards you. Right. There was a lot of deceit, a lot of lying, especially in that first circumstance where you had absolutely no idea at all and were blindsided. But I also feel kind of, I don't know her at all, but just like in the situation that you're telling me, I think of all the pressures we face as women, mm-hmm. And all the roles we're expected to feel, and all the ways that everyone always has a say on what's going on with us or our bodies, or how we should be as mothers, or how we should be as wives, and things like that. And what her family did to her, I think, is the most unethical, because they were way too involved in a decision that is super personal. Yeah. and super difficult to make. And God forbid, I don't know if you still are in contact with her, but if she ever comes to regret that decision, there could build resentment between her and her family, especially when it's racially motivated. That's a whole other layer of things.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everything about that sounds wrong to me from the details that I have. So I feel empathy for her as well, being sort of manipulated and brainwashed a little bit and pressured into making a decision that doesn't really feel like her own. That doesn't feel pro-choice to me.
Right.
You know, that feels coercive.
Right.
And manipulative. So that's a really complicated, layered situation there. It doesn't make it less difficult for you.
No, it doesn't.
It just adds more anger and wraps more people into it. You know what I mean? Which makes it even harder to overcome, because then you're kind of like, where do I direct my anger to? Do I direct my anger to someone? Like, you know, naturally when we're hurt, we want to blame. We want it to be someone's fault, and it's...
Right, we want justice.
Yeah, and that it's just hard, you know, especially because it's a very permanent thing.
Right.
That isn't undoable.
Can't undo it. You know, I do want to say about, you know, the first woman, you know, speaking of, you know, her reasons on why she did what she did, you know, with the family intervention. She called me several years ago, out the blue, and I was just, you know, I thought it was weird, and she was kind of quiet. I'm like, what's wrong? And she said, oh, nothing. I'm just, you know, got a lot on my mind. And I instantly just went to, what, are you pregnant?
Mm-hmm.
And she was. And the gentleman that she was pregnant with, her boyfriend at the time, didn't want to have kids. So, you know, gave what advice that I could. We talked probably about an hour or two. And then a couple of days later, she called me again. And she said, I need something from you. I said, okay, well, if I can give it to you, I'll do my best. She asked me for my forgiveness. And I was like, why are you asking me for that? And she's like, because I'm going to have this baby because I saw what it did to you. So I said, well, that's great if that's what you want to do for yourself. I said, you know, I gave her my forgiveness, and she asked me, she goes, can we stay in touch with each other? I said, I can't do that. And she asked me why, and I was like, because it's not fair to your kid. I said, one day I'll call out the blue, say hi, what's up? I said, I'll hear your kid in the background. I said, you know, and I'll just think my kid should have, you know,
that should be me.
My kid should be standing there.
Mm-hmm.
And she started crying, you know, saying, I don't want to be out of your life. And I told her, it's not fair to your kid. I said, and I can't tell you how I'll react, but I don't even want to put myself in that position. I told her, I said, you know, I've let a lot of things happen to me that I couldn't control. This is something I can control. And so I said, you know, I'll care about you to the day you die, but that's the best thing for me and for us. You ultimately see that's the best thing for me to not be around as you go through this experience of becoming a mom. She did have this baby. She wound up having a little girl that looked just like her.
Mm-hmm. So you're not in contact with either of them, or
no?
Okay. And then would you say like you still like care for them or have feelings for them, or are you completely moved on and removed from the situation?
No, completely moved on. I don't hate either of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because that you know that's something I don't want. I think I've already gone through those emotions, and that got me nowhere. And that's just me hurting myself, hating someone else. So no, there's no hate there, and you know I definitely have, you know, I'll always care for them because of the experiences that I went through with each of them. But protecting me and my mental health and my heart, no, we don't have any contact.
When you were going through this, I'm sure there was a blend of emotions, especially like given there was some betrayal in there. There's probably some, you know, hurt in terms of like the little bit of racism that you probably experienced from
Mm-hmm.
that girl's family. And then
Race played a
obviously,
part in both, just so we're clear.
okay.
Because because the second one, because she was of Filipino descent. Once again, even when I came into the picture, it was a big ordeal. Like, oh, have you seen her new boyfriend? He's black. When the first time I came to her mom and dad's house for Christmas, like they were all at the windows looking at me getting out of the car, like they had never seen a black person before.
Wow.
So it was kind of crazy. They eventually got past that and got normal. But coming into it, yeah, my race was a big part.
Right. And that's a whole other layer of like ancestral trauma almost, that's attached to that. And so, as you're going through this, what would you say was like the primary feeling? Like, was it grieving what you felt like was like the death of a loved one? Was it like how much of it was the racial stuff? How much of it was like the betrayal from the people that like you felt like was betrayal from someone you loved and trusted? Like, what stood out the most to you?
It was literally, I don't for those that watch Star Wars, it was literally going from sadness turning to hurt turning to anger. That's literally the stages that I went through. The anger feeling the part of no one fighting for these kids. I feel like it was me and them against their moms. As morbid as that sounds, but that's exactly how I saw it in my mind and in my feelings, was that if no one else is going to fight for them, I am, even though I can't bring them back. I can't undo what was done, but anger was a big component. And I didn't learn that until, because as these things happened to me growing up, anybody would tell you, always happy, always laughing, always, trying to make others happy. But when these things happened, a lot changed in me. It was bitter, can go to 0 to 60, just like that. As far as your anger, it was not calm and cool and collected, would like fly off the handle. Would have all these things happening to me, which confused me. Like, why are you like that? Talking to yourself like, Kyle, why are you getting so angry? And going to this abortion group that I went to this, it was a retreat. It's like a 3-day retreat. I learned that in the retreat that that's one of the emotions is rage and anger from the loss of all these kids. And it's not just it's not 2 kids, it's 5. That's a lot to deal with. And I started questioning my self-worth. I didn't grow up with the father. Even though I knew exactly where he was and he knew exactly where I was, my mother was married to him and everything. I've like, how is he allowed to have kids? I'm like, he must be better than me. Or I see these men that are, basically, killing their kids' moms or beating her to within an inch of their life. How are they allowed to have kids? Not me. They must be better than me. Or these guys that just got multiple kids born in the same time frame because they were cheating on this and that and the other, and having these 2 kids now born in the same time range. How's this guy having kids and I'm not? And they must be better than me. So it was a question. Maybe I'm not worthy to have kids.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it is me, because how can this happen? From a topic to stillborn to abortion, miscarriage. How can that happen to me so many times? I must be unlucky, must be cursed or something. How could that happen to me?
Yeah.
So and I'm really good with kids, really good with kids. I've been a coach, taught acting to kids. I've always had a great rapport with kids, and people have always asked me, you're gonna make a great father. You're gonna be a great father. You're gonna be a great dad. It's not in the cards.
Yeah. You made me cry. there's a lot of different ways where, you know, in different circumstances, not exactly what you're talking about, but I think there's that feeling where you're like, why is it like this? Why does the world work like this? Why does the universe work like this? I don't understand why we suffer.
Yep.
You know, that pops up in a lot of different ways for a lot of different people with trauma in general. I totally different, but I remember feeling like that when I lost my grandfather. I remember feeling like that was the first time I've ever been that close with death. And I had to witness it. You know, like that's someone that I was close to, that I lived 5 minutes away from, it wasn't like grandparents where they live across the country and you see him once a year for Christmas. Like I was there multiple times a week, and he had been in my life since I was little. And we're very similar. I have a personality because of him. I have his brain, like I'm smart because of him. I see a lot of, especially now that he's gone, like I see a lot of myself in him. And seeing him like that I'm pretty good with dealing with my feelings and processing things, and that's one of the things that I have to block out pretty tough, because it's in the moment I had to be strong,
right?
Because even though I was walking in there and it was hard for me, I knew that if it were the other way around, he would stick it out for me.
Right.
You know, like even if it was hard for him to see, he would be there, so that someone would be there with him. And there were multiple people there, you know, as he was kind of falling off. Like my dad was there, my boyfriend was there, my mom, and my grandma. But like there was a lot of our family members where it was too hard for them, understandably, you know. And I remember like just walking in the room when he was in hospice, and I was like the first person to see him from when he got transferred from the hospital to hospice. And I walked into the room, and, you know, I had just seen him the day before, and he was not super verbal, but still responsive. And I remember I was at work that day, and my mom had kind of told me and been like, just so you know, like, he's not responsive at all today. And I had painted this picture in my head of him kind of giving up and being like, I'm too tired. Like, I can't respond. Being maybe depressed and kind of keeping to himself. And that's not at all what it was. I wasn't prepared to walk in and have him be non-responsive as a human, by no choice of his own. And he was just kind of laying there and staring at this spot on the wall, because that's probably just the position that they had laid him in. And I had to kind of like stand in front of him for him to be able to see me. And he just like made a noise and was just like something, like couldn't move his mouth, he couldn't blink.
He was transitioning.
He was transitioning, and he just kind of made this noise. And I remember being like, yeah, like I'm here, it's destiny. I don't know if you could see me, but you know, I'm here and you're okay. And you know, I just have no idea what's going on in his head. And that was like the last response that he gave at all in any form. And so like the next few days he was in hospice, and I remember like putting eye drops in his eyes and like moving his eyes around for him, and you have to take like this little sponge and put like moisture on it and swab their mouth because their mouth gets dry. And he just was filling up, like his body was filling up with fluid because it wasn't going anywhere. Right. And like my grandparents they weren't super affectionate with each other. And I remember that when my grandma walked in, and she saw him, she looked at him and was like, I love you, Brent. And that was the first time that I'd heard her say that in my whole life. And that's when I knew, like, it was done. It's because she said that.
He was hanging on.
Huh?
He was hanging on.
Yeah. And so, which that like she was recognizing, like that's when it all became real for me. And so, since all that stuff happened, I try not to let it make me angry and bitter, because death is a part of life,
yeah.
And it happens in all different stages, all different ages, for different reasons, different circumstances. It's traumatic no matter what. But I do, have those days where I'm like, I don't understand this. Like, I don't understand why anyone would willingly sign up to come do this shit, like, as a soul.
Right.
Like, if
it's like the movie Soul, where you make the choice to come.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I'm, I read this book called Journey of Souls, and it's all about
I read that book too.
Yeah. And it helped me a lot with what happened, and I'm on the second book right now too, actually. And I just, like, if we don't remember choosing our bodies, like right now we're just very human and less soul. In the state that I'm in now, I'm like, why the fuck would I do this?
Yeah, why would I? Yeah, people at reincarnation. Why would I choose to come back?
Yeah. And it kind of gave me peace knowing that, I probably knew the hard things I was going to do in this lifetime, and that means I can do it. There's a reason that I
chose his life, right?
Yeah. So, I'm not, it's funny that we're talking about spirituality on a topic about abortion, but I'm not super religious. I guess you could say I'm spiritual, and I don't tell anyone else what to believe, or I don't claim to know what's going on outside of this existence, which is one of the reasons why I am pro-choice. But maybe there's some peace in knowing for you that there is purpose to what you just experienced, and it may be an entire lifetime before you know.
That's what, because, my friend Gary had asked me, he's like, how you doing today, brother? And I remember one day just telling him, it's like, I'm tired of playing it in my mind every day. And obviously the results ain't going to change, but every day you wake up to it. There's two stuffed animals that are on my bed. And it's a Eeyore doll and it's a Winnie the Pooh doll. And both those dolls were bought for the two kids that were aborted. Mm-hmm. So they're still, they're still with me. Yeah. They sit on my bed. People always ask, why do you have stuffed animals on your bed? And, and I just like, oh, there's a reason. Yeah. For those that know, for those, that see it, just, like, oh, just, and I've always liked the movie Winnie the Pooh. Yeah. So those things are still with me. I almost brought those things with me today, and I was like, nah, you better not. That's a little too much. So I left them sitting on the couch. But I still have those dolls representing those kids, and I've had dreams. I know the first kid that was aborted, I know she was a girl. The second kid that was aborted, I know was a boy, because they've both come to me in my dreams. And when I look at the three kids that I helped co-parent, and they used to say when they were younger, oh, I wish we had another brother or sister. And I would just look at them, couldn't say anything. Mm-hmm. It sucks. I wish the results were different. I wish things would have had a different outcome. That wasn't in the cards for me. And you're right. It may take me a lifetime to understand the why, or just to know the why. Right. And I will still hang in this fight. When some days are tougher than others, I will still hang in this fight, because Lord knows that thought has crossed my mind to not be here. Yeah. Because I didn't think it was a life worth living. Mm-hmm. For all that, and maybe I deserved it in some way, is what I used to tell myself, to be subjected to that so much.
That just makes it harder on you, Yeah, I wouldn't even, I'm sure now, but I wouldn't even go down that route, because I don't believe that, this is me personally, is I don't believe we're punished by a higher power. I think everything, if there is something after this, and there is like a greater beyond than what we know consciously here, it's easier for me to believe that we would choose it as a lesson for ourselves in some way from maybe another past life, or
Right.
to gain perspective, or to prepare us for our next life. I don't believe in punishment, or in, if there is something after this. I think that um it just is. There's nothing bad attached to it. It's just existing, it's pure energy, and it's growth. Um, I remember this stuck with me, because obviously I hadn't read that book yet before my grandpa died, but I grew up Catholic. I don't practice anymore. My mom is still Catholic, so she had our childhood priest come in and give my grandpa his last rites. And before he left, he looked at us and said, like, he's the lucky one, because he's going home,
Right.
and we're the one
We
that's
still got to
left
deal with this.
to grieve.
Yeah.
And I believe that, so even though, like, sometimes we selfishly wish them back here with us because it would make it easier for us,
Right.
they are doing better than we are. And I believe that. I do. I just have to, for my own sanity.
Yeah.
But I've had enough experiences, probably like things like you have with your dreams, and enough weird experiences, that I just believe that they're somewhere doing something. And I do think that they're available for us to communicate to them, no matter what.
Right.
Yeah, and now I'm just like thinking about like big life stuff. Despite all these things that I believe in spiritually, I am still pro-choice. And one thing that I thought was interesting is, because you've been really supportive towards me throughout this whole thing, despite what you've been through. Like, for anyone who's not aware, Kyle has been, because we kind of touched base about, should we still do this episode? How are you feeling after the Supreme Court rulings? And, despite everything or whatever conclusions you've drawn about what's going on, Kyle has been checking in with me, seeing how I'm feeling about what has happened, has sent me multiple posters about different rallies that are happening and protests that are happening around the city. And he expressed to me that despite what he's been through, he didn't think, and this is what I thought was interesting, is that you didn't think that the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade was a good thing.
No.
And I was just wondering why.
One of my biggest things with abortion that I don't like, if abortion becomes illegal, if a woman gets raped, or let's say she has a night out, meets some guy, they hook up, it has happened, she gets pregnant, by law she has to now carry this baby, and she can now be liable if she decides to act and do something with this pregnancy. So that's my first thing. And then two, it's a woman's body. Whether it hurt me that the two of the women that I was with decided to have abortions for the reasons that they did, at the end of the day, it's still their bodies. I can't control their bodies. I can't control their choices. So yeah, I'm going to still stand up and fight and stand beside women as they fight for their rights, because it is their right. And yeah, that's shocking for a lot of people to hear, considering what I've gone through. But I'm just here to just state how going through those things, how it made me feel. Never once did I said to myself, this is not your choice. You can't do this to me. I have rights too. That's my kid. Never once did I ever use that as an argument, even when things weren't so good between both of them. I've never used that. And I've always felt like it's a woman's choice. And I have relatives. My mom, when she found out about this, she actually revealed to me that she actually had an abortion. I did not know that. All these years of knowing my mom, I did not know that. After my sister, she terminated the pregnancy that she was having with my father. I understood her reasoning. He wasn't a good father. He wasn't in the military, but he was just not a good husband. He was very abusive. Understood her reasoning for not wanting to do that. She did tell me something that I'll never forget, because in my mind, I thought for both the women that did have the abortions that it didn't affect them either. My mom told me that's incorrect.
Right.
She's like, they'll remember it for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, there's something that you'll never forget as a woman. And I did not know. And not that I relished in her saying that, but it did give a sense of comfort, because to me, in those moments, it felt like this didn't bother either one of them. Like, they were just cold hearted. How could they do this? They were, so cerebral. I'm the one that's the emotional one and hurt. But, when my mom told me that, I kind of took a step back and just was like, wow, I wish, maybe one day in this life I can have that conversation with them, being in this headspace, to find out exactly how, the feelings that they had to process through for making that choice, because it couldn't have been easy.
Yeah.
We were full, these were two full-blown relationships here. So it didn't see that at the time. Years later, now looking back on it with perspective, it couldn't have been easy. They must have been gone. They must have both went through complete hell making that choice. I don't know how, I was nervous coming into here. I can't imagine what it was like for them going into that room and having to get on that table, knowing what was going to take place after. Because I'm sure they played it out in their heads, what was going to happen to me. So.
Right. And what you're saying, I feel like there's this huge thing that people don't understand about what it means to be pro-choice, because there are so many stereotypes and stigmas attached to the words pro-life and pro-choice. Mm-hmm. Everything's so political now, so It's hard to just have a regular conversation about something without someone trying to label you as all these different things, right? But being pro-choice, in my opinion, the reason I am pro-choice is because it leaves room for nuance. It gives someone the choice. You can still be pro-life under pro-choice measures. You can't be pro-choice under pro-life measures. Right. So, if you being pro-choice is basically saying like each individual person has the ability to decide based on their circumstance
what's best for them.
What is appropriate, right? For reasons like the one you just said, in circumstances of rape or incest, or maybe like someone knows immediately right away that, let's say they take a pregnancy test at 4 weeks and they're like, I can't do this, or I don't want to do this.
Right.
And they have a proper conversation and both partners determine like this is the right thing. There's no reason why that shouldn't be able to happen if there's scientific evidence to show like, hey, this is safe for all entities involved.
Right.
It's not going to be painful for the child. It's not going to be painful for the mother. Take that with a grain of salt, because emotionally it's painful, obviously.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, people are still going to get abortions.
Right.
Now it's going to be, unsafe.
Right. It doesn't, right. So that's why what just happened is dangerous, in my opinion.
It's very dangerous.
Because it doesn't mean that what happened in your situation was totally okay or appropriate.
Right.
I feel for you deeply, and that is traumatic, but does that mean, and I'm not even talking about like your instance specifically, like a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, but there are people who are pro-life who try to paint people who get abortions as the baby being like 7 months in and they change their mind and they're like, they're going in and cutting it out limb by limb, which is, I'm not okay with that either.
Right.
If, I haven't been through it, so I can't say that I know exactly what that must feel like, and I don't know all circumstances, but there are limits to what I'm okay with in terms of this.
You have
probably
boundaries.
With most people. But the fact that now there are places in the United States where a woman can be raped violently or by a family member under the age of 18, whatever the circumstance may be, and forced to carry the baby to term, that's not acceptable to me.
I agree with you.
And I think that for most people, it wouldn't be okay with them. And the fact, and I posted this on my Instagram the other day, the fact that this is not most states or most circumstances regarding abortion does not matter to me, because the fact that it's happening and it's okay and legal anywhere in the country that I live in is threatening to me.
Yes.
Because, and
now
I quoted,
it makes you selective of where do you choose to live.
Yeah, and not just that, but where does it end?
Yeah.
Like, if that slides, what else is going to slide?
Right.
And I used a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Yep.
So just because it's not your state, or you're not a woman, or whatever, there's a lot of different things that are protected under the 14th Amendment that could now come into question. They're talking about, gay marriage.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or what if, contraceptive is protected too.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens if it's not?
I think we just really opened up Pandora's box.
Right. So there's a lot more consequences to this that people might not realize. And it's easy to be narrow-sighted and just, I don't know, man.
I've never liked the fact that, the justices that sit on the Supreme Court are there for life. Like that's like that's just like, how is that even correct in any sense of the word?
Right.
And then the people are not even choosing these justices. The politicians obviously are doing that.
Right.
But for life, your thinking changes.
Yeah.
Most CEOs, most companies are not going to have a CEO
for
running a company.
Life.
Yeah, they're not going to do that. Not even when they hit a certain age, they're not going to do that, because obviously, your motor skills change. They diminish. And some of them are still stuck in the time that they were, in their prime in.
Right.
Things have changed.
Yeah. Right. So before we wrap this up, I'm just wondering, are you still hoping to have children? Is that something that you're considering, or do you feel like it's a risk for you? And speaking in terms of trauma and what you've been through.
I've never come close to it outside of those 5 years that I went through those experiences. Since then, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If you'd have asked me this question 15 years ago, it would have been, oh hell yeah, I want to be a dad and have a family. I still down with the wife part of life.
Yeah.
Think that's a healthy thing. But I don't know if it's a deal breaker anymore to have kids.
Yeah.
So. And
I understand. I empathize. Is there anything that you would like to add that I haven't already covered?
No. Once again, I want to thank you for bringing me on. It's a lot to keep in the closet for a long, long time.
Right.
And that was just, I didn't, want people to paint me or see me in a different light, and I hope I didn't, do that in a negative way. Mm-mm. on here. I was very nervous about coming on here. Literally. I almost called you and was like, you sure you still want to do this? Mm-hmm. Because I don't know how people are going to perceive this, but I can't control that. I thank you for having me on here and able to be in a safe environment to discuss this after all these years. And I will continue to stay in the fight and continue to move forward in a positive manner, and just be grateful that I learned from those lessons and it didn't take me down a path that I couldn't recover from.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kyle.
You're welcome.
That's all I have for you today. Thank you again for coming on and
you're very welcome.
Sharing a vulnerable experience with me and the audience. I'm sure there's someone out there who's really going to be able to relate to this and probably has been waiting to hear it, and they'll feel seen because of you, even if it's just one person. Like, that matters. And I've said this before, I have the belief that most humans are good, and most humans are able to relate to grief,
right?
No matter what form of it takes, because like I said, I'm very vehemently pro-choice, but I feel for you on a human level because it's something that I have not experienced.
And I hope no one has to go through that. It's just, it's a lot.
Right.
I'm, amazed that it didn't take me under fully.
Right. So power to you.
Thank you so much.
If any of you guys would like to continue this conversation with Kyle or have any more questions for him, I'll have his contact information available on my Instagram and YouTube channel. Thank you all for your patience and your compassion in a very difficult time for many people. And I will see you all again in 2 weeks to talk more elephants.